John chapter 6, 16 through 21 says this: That evening Jesus' disciples went down to the shore to wait for him, but as darkness fell and Jesus hadn't come back, they got into the boat and headed across the lake toward Capernaum. Soon a storm swept down upon them, and the sea grew very rough. They had rowed 3 or 4 miles when suddenly they saw Jesus walking on the water toward the boat. They were terrified, but he called out to them, "Don't be afraid. I am here." Then they were eager to let him in the boat, and immediately they arrived at their destination. What's very interesting about the account that John brings is he doesn't record Peter, who actually walks on water, and he steps out of the boat and he sees Jesus. He says, "Lord, if it's you, call me and I'll walk on the water." And then remember, he takes his eyes off Jesus, begins to sink, and then Jesus saves him. But we learn something so cool, that Jesus has authority over creation. Colossians 1:15 says that he's the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. All things were made through him, and all things were created by him and for him. And so we learn that Jesus is the creator. So as he has dominion over the water, as he walks upon it, not bound to the laws of science, because he created the laws of science. So he's greater than the laws of science that would make it impossible to walk on water. And he shows his dominion over all creation. There's another account in the Bible where Jesus calms the storm, and he says to the storm, when the disciples were afraid, Jesus was sleeping, remember? The disciples woke him up and he said, "Peace, be still," and the whole sea calmed down. A lesson, though, that we can learn from this is Jesus said to his disciples as they were terrified, "Do not be afraid, I am here." You see, something very interesting is that when we see God, there's a fear aspect, right? The Bible says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. They were afraid because they saw Jesus walking on the water. They were afraid. That it was just so shocking. But Jesus comforted them and said, "Don't be afraid." You see, our relationship with God, when we first come to know God, he's an all-consuming fire, and there should be a healthy fear of him. Like in Isaiah 6, when Isaiah was caught up into heaven, he saw God seated on his throne. The train of his robe filled the temple, and he saw the glory of God. And Isaiah said, "Woe is me, I'm a man of unclean lips." He realized how terrifying God was, but then God said, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." And this happens a lot in the Bible, where people are afraid, and then God says, "Don't be afraid," because he's loving, he's comfortable. God is like a fire. Right? Fire is dangerous. If you go near it and touch it, you get burned. But if you're in a proper relationship with the fire, that fire can be comfortable and warming. You see, God is a fire that can burn if you're walking in sin, but if you're in good relationship with him, he can warm you and bring comfort to you.